Welcome back to my channel for Data, Machine Learning, and Tech Career. In today's video, we're going to go over a data set I downloaded from online for Google Playstore app data, and we're going to use Python to clean up the data and do a basic summarization. And because in real life, there are a lot of nuances about the data, and you might need to clean up or remove duplicates. So I'm going to have the link down below to help you, practice your Python scripts with using these data sets, and that's given in the CSV file. But I'm also going to go over the CSV file in the Excel format so it's easier to understand overall concept of like what we're trying to accomplish here. So we have two data sets here. First one is app summary data, and it's called df here, using the pd pandas package.readCSV as a function to read your CSV file into a data frame. But the other data set we have is a reviews data, but in this video we're just not gonna make it complicated, so we're gonna focus on a df data frame, but you can use df.head to look at a high level summary, the 5 rows of your data, just to see how the data looks like. But based on, when you just simply look at the data, you're going to think that this is really straightforward. It's just aggregated table based on the app. But but later on, when you do your exploratory analysis, you're going to realize that they're actually duplicates. And also you can see that installs here has a plus sign at the end. And so it's probably stored as a string, not as an integer. So then we have to clean up these data before we can even process any of the analysis or modeling part. So to check your assumption about the fact that a data frame should only have one app per row, the fastest way to check this will be using the value counts of your app column. So you can do that by df bracket app with quotation marks dot value counts parentheses, and that will give you, so automatically it will give you all the for each value what's the number of rows there is. But then because we want to make sure that there's no duplicate, so if the easiest way will be sorting the values of the value counts in a descending order. So you'll use ascending equals false to get a descending order. So then you'll see that Roblox has 9 rows of data in this app data set. And so clearly there are duplicates, and you can see that it's not just simply one row or one app that has multiple. It's actually quite some, like Duolingo has 7 as well. So that, we need to make sure that we don't include the duplicates in this case. So since we were looking at Roblox as the 9 rows of data that has a lot of duplicates, that we want to, assuming like what's the best approach to, remove the duplicates, my idea is that you can keep only the last row that was inserted. So in this case, let's assume that these 2 rows are one of the the last 2 rows that was inserted, and then that maybe the game one is actually the actual last row that was inserted. So then we're gonna keep this row and remove everyone else. So it's more like, removing duplicates is more like removing the older data that's actually duplicating the data set. So since we were looking at Roblox as the 9 rows of data that has a lot of duplicates, that we want to, assuming like what's the best approach to, remove the duplicates, my idea is that you can keep only the last row that was inserted. So in this case, let's assume that these 2 rows are one of the the last 2 rows that was inserted, and then that maybe the game one is actually the actual last row that was inserted. So then we're gonna keep this row and remove everyone else. So it's more like, removing duplicates is more like removing the older data that's actually duplicating the data set. Before jumping into more about cleaning the data, please make sure to subscribe to learn more about data, and also leave a comment below to let me know, what type of data set you'd like to work with, and I'll make sure that I'll cover them in the future. So what I would do is to use df, which is our data frame, dot drop duplicates, parentheses subset equals quotation mark app. So in this case, because we're trying to remove the duplicates based on the app, right? So because Roblox, we only want 1 row of data instead of 9 rows of data. So that's our unique identifier that we're going to use. This is the app name. And then we will do comma keep equals quotation mark last. So we're only going to keep track of the last row of the data, and then comma in place equals true. So we only use in place equals true because we want to replace the data frame df to this new data set that we're dropping the duplicates for. So we saw earlier that installs has, plus signs and also some commas. So for us to understand, before we clean it up to, make a lot of assumptions about your data sets, we need to actually look at, what the values are first. And maybe we need to do some filters and we need to, clean up, like maybe there's some edge cases that we need to cover, so that you can do that by doing a df bracket installs that value counts. And that way you will just get all the values and number of rows for each value. And that here we can see that free is on the top and it only has one row, but free should not be an install column, right? So then we should definitely filter out that specific row. And also we can see that, sometimes it's 0, sometimes 0 plus has a plus sign, and in some cases there are, a lot more commas, sometimes there's, no plus signs. So we want to make sure we take care of all of that. But first, because the free row, it's more straightforward to filter out. So we're going to filter out first by doing df equals df bracket installs not equal to. So exclamation point and equal sign means not equals to. So and then the free. So we're pretty much with this script, we're pretty much removing the rows that has free value for installs column. So after we have taken care of the free value that we want to filter out, now we need to make sure that the plus signs are removed and the commas are removed. So we can do that first by applying, so we can do apply lambda x. So what this is doing is pretty much like a loop where you're looping through every single row and then find the logic to say, if there is a plus sign in the string in the installs column, then we want to replace the plus sign with empty quotation mark. And then else, if there is no plus sign in your values, then we're just gonna leave it as is because we don't need to replace anything. And so we can do the same function for a plus sign and a comma. So we remove the comma with an empty quotation mark. So after you after you loop through all the rows and replacing the pluses and replacing the commas, now we need to convert it. So because it used to be a string and string is not, cannot be calculated. So we have to convert it to integer. And so you can do that by apply lambda. So same thing, you're looping through every single row, and you can do int parentheses x. So x is your, value. And so you're converting every single row into an integer instead. So if you do the same thing for the prices, you're gonna notice that some of the prices has dollar signs, and so it's actually stored as a string. So if you want to do any calculation for prices, then you have to, manipulate the data before you can actually do any sort of summarization. And so in order to do that, we have to do the same thing to loop through every single row and replace the dollar sign with the empty spaces, so that our, string is replaced to only include the dollar values. And then after you do that, you have to convert it into a float. The reason why it's a float instead of integer is because dollar signs, if you look at the actual values, you're going to see that there's like 99 cents, there's going to be 1.99. And so that's a reason why it's a float, not an integer, because you have decimal places. And so we need to make sure that we cover the edge cases of, removing the dollar signs and converting into a numerical value. So after you have done all your cleanup in your data sets, then now we can finally do some even just like the most basic summarization. So then, in most cases, you're probably not interested in the summary at the app level, because the data set itself is already aggregated at the app level. So it will be more interesting looking at, category level. What's the, if there's a different trend of like star ratings or a number of installs or prices. And so we can cover that by using df.group by category. So we're going to group by our data set into the categories and then calculate the average of the numerical value. So in this case, we're not specifically saying which metric we're calling it, but like we're just calculating the average of all the numerical values that's available in this data set, and we want to group by category. So this is pretty much the same thing as you doing your pivot table, and you have your category as your column, and that's how you'll do it.